Ignite Talk presenters. Quick summary of who's registered. We had over 430 people register, but this was data of 407 of them. Most of us are coming from nonprofits. It's great to see a large entity or large representation of school food service and school districts as well. So we have the right people in the room. Also want to recognize that school food service right now and schools in general, it's a challenging situation right now with labor shortages and supply chain issues. So just want to recognize that it'd be a challenge for some school food services to attend. So those that have made it, kudos and thank you for coming to learn more. And last but not least, I just want to share another data point that over half of our registrants do have support from school food service in their school gardening efforts. So some of them, 114 said yes, and our majority said a little bit or somewhat. So that is great that we're here to learn more about school food in school gardens. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea and Summer and let them introduce themselves from the Office of Community Food Systems and USDA Farm to School. So Summer and Andrea, thanks for being here.
Hi everyone, I'm Summer Skillman, a program analyst with the USDA Office of Community Food Systems in the national office out of Alexandria, Virginia. The Office of Community Food Systems work with various farm to school stakeholders by providing grants, conducting research, and offering training and technical assistance. On an annual basis, the USDA awards competitive farm to school grants on a vast array of eligible organizations as they initiate, expand, and institutionalize state, regional, and local farm to school programs. This past fiscal year of 2021, the Farm to School Grant Program awarded $12 million to 177 farm to school projects across 45 states and the District of Columbia. This is the largest number of projects funded since the awards began in 2013. We also offer many technical assistance resources online. OCFS has developed fact sheets and toolkits to support various farm to school stakeholders, from incorporating local foods in school cafeterias to gardens in tribal communities. We offer a wide variety of resources on various farm to school topics. The best way to stay updated on all of OCFS has to offer is to subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter. It's called The Dirt. Right now, The Dirt has over 86,000 recipients, and it highlights farm to school grantee success stories, grant opportunities, and many other current farm to school resources. So make sure you sign up to receive the latest farm to school news from the USDA through The Dirt. The OCFS research is responsible for conducting the farm to school census. In this past July, the results from the 2019 census were released. Next slide, please. The Farm to School Census is a one-of-a-kind report from the USDA that features nationwide survey data from all school food authorities, or FSAs, participating in the National School Lunch Program and capturing the extent of their farm to school program engagement. By going to our newly revised census website, you can get a quick sense of the farm to school landscape. From the census, we discovered that there are 12,334 schools in the country that have at least one school garden. Just over 34% of SFAs have gardens, and 1/5 of all farm to school SFAs participated in educational school garden activities as a part of their school, summer, or after school curriculum. The chart represents questions posed on the census. How do you use your garden harvest? The greatest use of school garden harvest was for educational activities. The second greatest use was providing food for school cafeterias. To expand upon the school garden to cafeteria, let me hand it over to my colleague, Andrea. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Alma, the USDA Farm to School Regional Lead in the Mountain Plains region based in Denver. It's really great to be with you here today. First, I want to acknowledge that these are crazy times for school food service professionals. Between the supply chain disruptions we're seeing that are causing, shortages in food supplies for schools, to these national labor shortages we're seeing, You might find that if you try and reach out to your school's food service director right now, they might be a little hard to get a hold of because they're maybe out serving lunch in a cafeteria or kind of operating in crisis mode. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're thinking about making connections with your school food service partners right now. Maybe that now this is the moment to offer them some support with some of the crises they're facing in the lunchroom, but they may not have the brain power to kind of sit down with you and map out a really robust partnership at this very moment. So listed here on the slide are 5 buckets or categories that aim to cover some of the topics that you all expressed your interest in when it comes to partnerships between school food service programs and school gardens, based on what you said when you registered for this webinar. So we're going to kind of breeze through all of them and give you some resources, and then our case studies to follow will really bring these concepts to life. Next slide, please. First of all, there is a myth out there that we're just going to go ahead and bust. Our branch of USDA, the Food Nutrition Service, oversees all the federal school meal programs, and we encourage you to serve school garden produce and local food, for that matter, in your school meals. There are no federal regulations that would prevent that. And honestly, it's schools in conjunction with the local health departments that inspect them for food safety that really work together to determine the requirements that they might have for vendors of anyone who provides school food. So there aren't any special kind of overlaying requirements that USDA adds to that local authority there that would get in the way of a garden to cafeteria program. So next slide, please. Let's jump into our buckets, so to speak. First, garden to cafeteria, or serving garden grown food in school meals, is really the most fruitful when there is open communication between the school food service program and the garden stakeholders. I'm sure this is not news to anyone. In this partnership, a garden to cafeteria process or procedure for how the food is kind of harvested and ends up on a student's tray, and any food safety protocols so that everyone can rest assured that the food safety risks are minimized. These are kind of 2 major points of conversation between, again, the school food service and the garden coordinators. Some schools choose to document food safety steps in a checklist that might kind of align with the good agricultural practices standards or gaps, similar to the one shown here from the DC Office of the State Superintendent of Education. Checklists like these can kind of help the school food service program make sure that all the ducks in a row and steps are taken to reduce those food safety risks. And garden stakeholders can really make sure that they're committing to habit these good food safety practices, which quite frankly are marketable skills for students involved in school gardens. Next slide, please. And you'll see the link in the chat here to our handout, which actually has different resources aligned with these different concepts. There are 4 main ways that school food service programs can purchase food from the school garden. First, the school nutrition program can actually buy things like seeds, supplies, gloves, or tools for the garden in advance of or during the growing season, as long as then the food from that garden comes back to benefit the students and the school meal program. And there are 2 memos linked in the handout that really describes this process in more detail. Second, an interdepartmental agreement is an agreement between 2 public entities, for example, the PTA or parent-teacher organization, let's say, or a FFA program that might run the school garden, connecting them with the school nutrition department. So through this interdepartmental agreement, these 2 entities could agree on a fair price and just go ahead and buy the food from one another. The third method is a micro purchase, which is a fancy way of saying that the school district's food service program can kind of just buy the food from the garden entity. And this can be the case if the total value of those purchases is $10,000 or less, or in some cases, your state might have a more stringent threshold. If you want to go this route, you may want to check with your state agency that oversees school meal programs to make sure you're following the rules around using this method. Finally, the school food service program can actually get price quotes, which is part of the informal procurement method, or number 4 there on the list. And finally, the school garden can donate product to the lunchroom. In any arrangement that you use, you'll want to really document those garden purchases, the quantities, types of products, and dates for good record keeping. So next slide, please. And I do see in the chat there was a question over what is a SFA, or school food authority. That's the term that we use for the entity that operates the National School Lunch Program. Often it's contiguous to school district. So school food authority, in your head, you can sort of think of it as school district, basically. Okay. If your garden doesn't want to or isn't able to necessarily sell food to the cafeteria, well, then that's okay. There are all sorts of different ways that the school food service program can partner with the garden. For example, school food service programs can actually fund school garden coordinators as part of their staff. An example is the Lawrence School District in Lawrence, Kansas, which has a full-time garden coordinator housed in that nutrition services department that helps manage school gardens in association with various partners and other departments, and works with teachers on garden education. Sometimes the roles and responsibilities of different garden partners and the school food service program are outlined in kind of more formalized agreements or memorandum of understandings. And getting together and thinking through the roles and responsibilities and kind of writing them down on paper is a really helpful or valuable exercise that you very well may want to consider. Next slide, please. I don't think I have to say it twice that the strongest farm to school programs or school garden programs really thread food education throughout the cafeteria, the classroom, and the community. What's going on in the lunchroom is really mirrored in the garden and reiterated in the classroom. And this is a space where school food service programs can partner with school gardens. Minneapolis Public Schools, for example, has recently focused on the Fabulous 5, or 5 specific crops to make these cafeteria, classroom, garden connections. There are 5 crops that grow really well in Minnesota, are regularly served in the cafeterias, they grow in the school gardens, and they offer sort of endless opportunities for learning in the spaces of nutrition, culture, history, science, culinary arts, and more. And on the right there is another food service program's educational newsletter that you can see as sort of, again, making these educational connections in line with what's going on in the lunchroom and on students' trays. Next slide, please. And finally, school nutrition departments can help get grants and raise funds for school garden efforts. This can look many different ways. The school nutrition department might coordinate efforts for students to sell their own produce through a school-based garden farmers market. They might pull down grants for this work. And, specifically, a great example of this is the Farm to School grant program. So our grant is about to hit the street soon, and you definitely will want to register for the DIRT that Summer mentioned to hear about that grant opportunity when it becomes available. We have all sorts of farm to school grantees that incorporate partnerships between gardens and school food service. Actually, in fact, all of the examples I shared on these previous slides are current or former grantees. And I'm going to pass it back to Summer to give us a kind of sneak peek about a garden to cafeteria example that will soon be featured in the DIRT. So Summer, back to you. And next slide.
Thank you, Andrea. So in the dirt, we like to feature monthly one of our grantees, either current or former, to show success stories on how utilizing their grant has made them a successful farm to school program. The recent one in Aurora, Minnesota, an agricultural program was created to teach students at the Mesabi East Elementary School where their food comes from by planting and growing seeds in an empty third floor classroom. So by showing the kids of this community where their food comes from, it was really important for them because while they're rural, they live in a food desert. And this garden room, as they called it, inspired the school district to encourage and support farm to school. Their support aided in the creation of the Mesabi East Environmental Education Center. So the Mesabi East School District became the first school district in northern Minnesota to begin farm to school. A year later, they expanded their operation when the school district bought 2 greenhouses and 1.5 acres of green space. This became an education center where the children of their community could grow food for their cafeteria and sell their surplus produce at their farmers market they created there. So what started as an initial profit of $150 from 10 trays of tomatoes just to keep their program up and running has now grown into a thriving agribusiness that has profited over $30,000 in the past year. It is impressive that this rural school not only provides food for its school cafeteria, but it also contributes to its community through their farmers market while teaching its children about food production and healthy eating. If you'd like to hear more about this story, it will be in the upcoming Dirt, which will release on Tuesday. Thank you very much. And next slide.
So I think that's it from the USDA. Thank you, Summer and Andrea, for sharing all those resources and putting together the handout. If you haven't linked to the handout, it's in the chat, and I was linking the long version of it, but there's an easier version that I linked to in the chat at 11:19. We're going to transition. We just shared so much information. We want to give you all an opportunity to meet with another person or 2, maybe 3. And in our breakout room, we're going to randomly select you into a breakout room. We're going to be in there for about 7 to 8 minutes. So you have about 2 minutes to share per person, just to kind of give a touch point to other folks of where you're at, your name, location, kind of the name of your org and what you're doing. And then here's some suggested discussion starters. So of what we just heard, I learned, or this resonated with me, or I'm excited to follow up on, like, for example, a USDA grant. Or maybe you're going to share something related to what you're doing well or what you're looking to improve upon. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tristana to put us into breakout rooms, and we're going to be in there just for about 7 minutes, so not too long. So make sure that you're brief and just get a chance to hear from everybody in the room. So we should get a breakout room.
Yes, give me one moment. Just making sure we've got enough people in each room. Great, I am opening all rooms. You should get a notification to go to your breakout room. And if you happen to have just one person in your room, feel free to come back to the main room and we'll put you in another room. Looks like some folks are hopping off. And if you're still in the main room, you'll need to accept the invite into the breakout room. And if you're not able to join, no problem. We will come back in a bit. Let me know if anyone needs support getting into their breakout room. Great, so Light, I will assign you. There you go.
From Ventura Unified School District. And actually, I learned something about Elise. She's been doing this work for over a decade, I believe. And she mentioned to me that they're no longer in school food services, which is interesting because they've been there for almost 20 years, but she'll share that story with you. So take it away, Elise.
Great, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I'm Elise. I am the Healthy Schools Project Coordinator at Ventura Unified School District, and I wear two hats. I'm a coordinator of this education arm of our Farm to School program, and I'm also a garden and nutrition educator. Next slide, John. So we are here to grow healthy kids and connect them to nourishing food. And we want all of our kids, all of the students that we serve, to develop the knowledge, the skills, the abilities essential for growing up into healthy adults. So we have the elements of our program are nutrition education, cooking, agriculture, and school garden-based education. And everything that we're doing in our program, we want to connect the dots between the garden and kitchen classrooms to the cafeteria school meals, local farms, and integrating that into California content standards. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So we have a team of 3 garden and nutrition educators. We serve about 6,000 students at 14 schools, mostly elementary with a few middle and 1 high school. And 13 of the schools that we serve have school gardens. And this is about half of our school district. So we're just in about 50% of the schools at Ventura Unified. Next. So for our garden-based learning program, our team of educators, we're out in the gardens teaching and modeling lessons for teachers. We're coordinating ongoing maintenance of the gardens, and we are those facilitators to bridge the garden to the cafeteria and to the local farms that we work with in our program. So students are growing produce for their school cafeteria meals and donating it. and then engaging in a variety of lessons connected to earth science, life science, and nutrition standards. Next, please. Our Harvest of the Month program is another way that we connect the garden to the cafeteria. So we feature a different local farmer, a crop, and a specialty recipe each month. Those crops and the recipes are served weekly at lunchtime in the cafeteria. And those students at all the schools that we serve, they're learning to grow those crops in their school gardens and donating them to be incorporated into the meals. And they're also engaging in regular cooking and tasting lessons. So they're having these hands-on experiences, learning to prepare these dishes that are served at lunch. And they're tasting different varieties of local crops that we're bringing in from local farmers in the classroom and garden, so that when they come to the cafeteria, they're ready to be adventurous eaters. Next slide, please. And we hear all the time from cafeteria managers, when students are harvesting the fruits and vegetables from their garden, donating it to the cafeteria for meals, students are requesting it when they're coming through the lunch line and are really excited to enjoy their harvest during mealtime. And so this is exactly what we want to see happen. We want students who are actively connecting to their gardens and the cafeteria while learning how to nourish themselves. Next slide, please. So a little bit of our program history, and John shared about that when he introduced me. So for the last 20 years, this program has been the education arm of our Farm to School program, housed within Food and Nutrition Services. And because of that, we were able to really build out these strong garden to cafeteria connections. This school year is the first year that our program was moved to a new department that was created called the Career Technical Education and Innovation Department. And our district received a grant to build a school farm at one of the high schools. And so they wanted us to join their team to support the building out those ag CTE connections from kindergarten through elementary, and then connecting to the work that they're doing at the high school level. So exciting opportunity and transition. It's just happening. So we're still moving through that transition. But even though we're in a different department, our strong connections to food service will continue on. Next slide, please. A little bit of our funding history. So basically the first half of the program's life was funded primarily through grants. And through that work, we were able to really show the impact of this program, why it's so great for kids and for the school meal program. Then in 2014, we were able to integrate a majority of our funding into LCFF, which is a local control funding formula that started in California schools, which gives schools in California more flexibility in how they spend their dollars in order to improve student outcomes. And so the local control accountability plan is a 3-year plan that school districts create with specific goals, actions, and services to support positive student outcomes. And so in 2004, we were able to integrate into the LCAP, get funded through this district funding stream to sustain the program, which was really huge for us. That was a time where, since we had a sustainable funding stream, we were really able to dig deep and develop out the program even more during that time period. Unfortunately, we are not in the LCAP for a variety of reasons that I won't share right now. And now we're back to 100% grant funded. But I really encourage those of you who are in California to look into that possibility. Is there a possibility within the school district within your school district to incorporate school garden-based nutrition education into the LCAP and get funds through the district to sustain a school garden program. So
thank you, Elise. I'm
thanks,
going to
John.
transition on and highly, highly recommend looking at your LCAP if you have that, because we've seen school garden programs get funded through that. And it's great to hear that CTE is taking on the gardens. So we're going to move on to Bill Whitcomb from Whitson's Culinary Group. Bill was a founder of the School Garden Support Organization-Network. He's going to share his screen and his slides. But what's unique about Bill, he works for a food service management company that puts in and helps support school gardens at the school sites that they operate in. So a real unique opportunity if you were able to work with such a food management company. So thank you, Bill, for sharing. And you are muted, I believe. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
We got me? Oh, okay. Thank you, John. And I really appreciate everyone's work on this. I think the organization has grown so much in the last few years. We're doing so many great things. And I just kudos to you and the team for just really just making some amazing progress. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm excited. I've been doing garden work for the last 15 years for my company. And I think this is an amazing time for anybody who's working in garden programs. My company, Whitson's Culinary Group, we're a Northeast-based company, and we've been really engaged in garden programs for the last 15 or so years. And we've really run the gamut on everything from just a few raised beds to large greenhouse programs. So there's been a lot of different programs that we've been involved with, school sizes, and just resources that were available to the program. And really what's been the same through all that is our commitment to utilize the produce safely, to promote the efforts, because without promotion of these programs, they die on the vine, essentially. And it's really important that food service management companies really embrace the promotion and live the life of being a partner in a program. We're really committed to engaging students with the community and this program. And it's about creating lasting experiences. And I think what's happened in food service in the last several years with changes in the requirements and the expansion of the programs, we really need to maintain the fact that connecting experiences for students and connecting them to food is really important. And we all need to be committed to that. And as a food service management company, I've really strived in the last several years to make sure that we still do that, because we're competing against this. Billions of dollars of marketing, lots of just creative marketing against what a lot of us want to change in food and what we want to do. And one of the ways that we're able as a company to invest in resources, we utilize the garden cooking and meal model. And this really is, as everyone here knows, we utilize the produce, we put it in the hands of a chef, and we're creative. We try to be as creative as possible. We allow our regional chefs and our local chefs to create new recipes as often as possible to enhance the local produce that we're using, whatever that program is. Our chefs and our culinarians have direct access to really be creative. And I wish this picture was a little bit bigger, but what you see on the right-hand side under that meals box is actually meals that we served 2 weeks ago. So during pandemic times, we were able to still utilize garden produce in a grab-and-go meal, and we're still marketing it the same way. We're being consistent, because I think really the power of the program is being able to be consistent and allow the fact that you're going to go through ebbs and flows of your program. And what we still need to be consistent is the quality and the continuity. And even in a grab-and-go program during the pandemic feeding model we have all been through in the last 12 or so months, it's still important. So we really make the stride, and we really try to make sure that we get the message out there. We utilize the produce as little or as much as possible, and we're committed to that. And these are all wins for programs. And I'm not, this is nothing new to everybody here, but if we can engage employees to be part of the program, it's a win for food service. And if you can, you can make especially a work environment now with the fact that everybody in the labor market's having issues, if we can create work environments that allow our employees to engage students and community alike and share in the garden experience, it's going to be a better work environment for all. And you will maintain your employees, you'll create environments that people want to stay in. school food's been going through a lot of challenges in the last several months, and we've really found that these programs help employees be creative, help employees have outlets for what they want to do and how they want to share their experiences with food. And if we don't allow those outlets to be, and we don't provide resources and help these outlets, our employees aren't going to be happy on site. So that's really important. And after all this, better participation comes through. We see that students are engaged more in programs, they're eating more meals, they're participating in breakfast, they're participating in the lunch programs, and that's better resources for the school district, which means a better program overall. And one of the things that we try to do is create experiences for students that they can't get at the QSR, they can't get at the large big box stores where all the marketing dollars are. And we do that in we try to do that in many different ways. And what you see here is just a couple of pictures of our chef. I took this 3 weeks ago. We had a harvest event at a local school in Connecticut, and we served squash, sweet potatoes, beets. These were all local items. We created a spaghetti squash with our pork loin entree there. These were all chef inspired. And this is something that we do to create an experience, because when students have an experience with a chef and with local food, they will more likely have that meal next time. And I think everyone here knows that when we make exciting experiences for students in food service, they're lasting. I'm going to play for you, and the volume on this won't play because I'm calling through my phone, but another way to connect students and create this marketing atmosphere is to create engaging videos. And we do this a lot. We try to do these monthly. Right now, this was a video that we created at a local farm. The same guy that you see in the video is the same guy in the slide right now. So it's one of our chefs, one of our executive culinarians, and he creates recipe videos for schools. Now, this is something that, again, we're serving. It was a squash and rice bowl with some corn and some other vegetables on there. And this was a recipe that's available for the students, but they also see it. So they're experiencing the recipe through the video. Everyone knows the media channels have exploded in the last several years, and we need to be part of that. We need to create media that's engaging for students. And for school nutrition, something like this really, really helps.
So Bill, you're coming to the end of your time. That's an exciting video though, to see the chef out there. That's cool.
Yeah. I'll just wrap it up real quick. Some of the things that we do particularly is to make garden solutions easy. We try to make these easy. So we developed a vertical garden unit that is turnkey. It's in a box, soil seeds, a unit that the school can hang on the wall. We provide a grow light. It's an instant garden. So we try to make these things easy for the schools to use, engaging for students, but they connect well to the food service program. And as everyone's been talking about, Andrea talks a lot about that food safety. We ensure that we try to make sure that HACCP plans are developed that include all of the produce handling, because it's not just about obviously marketing, it's about the safe produce handling. We make sure that the logs are all created with the school, with the students. They're involved in the process from the very beginning, so they understand what a HACCP plan is. And we get them to also buy the produce. So as we spoke before, Andrea mentioned it before, we're actively involved in creating every garden as a vendor for our food service program. We involve the kids in the invoicing and the inventory management. They're engaged in the program because that's a connecting and complete food experience. And that's our goal. I'll finish it up, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill. That is so great to see. And that whole food safety plan, the HACCP plan, that is a real important element when you're taking produce straight from the garden. So great to see that last slide. We do have lots of examples of how schools do their food handling in the resource handout that we shared. And now we are going to transition to Akita Mayfield from Baldwin County School District in Georgia. She's a wellness coordinator there. They have some great school garden programs. Want to remind folks, if you have specific questions, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation and address some of those questions. So I'm going to add Akita here as the spotlight, and I'm going to share my screen, and you are on, Akita. Thanks for sharing today. Let me get your slide up. Share. All right.
Okay. So my name is Akita Mayfield. I am the Wellness Coordinator and Grants Project Manager at the Baldwin County School District. Go to the next slide. Go ahead.
Is it working, my screen share?
No, next slide, please. That's just a picture of our garden.
Okay, here we are.
Just a little bit about our school district. We're located in the heart of Middle Georgia in a little city called Milledgeville. We have over 5,000 students, 7 schools, 1 high school, a satellite.
We had a technological freeze, it sounds like. So Akita, you have frozen. I don't know if other people can hear. I cannot. Someone wants to confirm in the chat that Akita is frozen as well. Okay, we got Akita's frozen. Bummer. Okay. We'll give it a second, and then what we could do. So Akita, if you can hear, you might want to turn your screen off and see if that reduces the lag that you're getting. Okay, so I'm gonna let Akita know that she's frozen, and we are gonna move on to our next presenter, who's Janine Rizzo from Palm Beach Schools in Florida, a school district with over 200 schools. So Janine, I'm putting you on the spot. Hopefully you're ready to share, and then we will get Akita to go on after you. So Janine, if you are there, I'm going to spotlight you.
Okay, I'm here.
Awesome. Okay, Janine, you're on, and Akita, hopefully we'll get back on and we'll be able to share from Baldwin County Schools.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and I guess good morning to some of you who are tuning in on the West Coast. Happy Wednesday. I'm Janine Rizzo, and I oversee student wellness initiatives for the School Food Service Department for the School District of Palm Beach County. I joined the district in 2015, and I'm delighted to be here today to showcase our school garden initiative. To get us started, I'd just like to provide you with a brief overview of our district. Next slide, please. We're the 10th largest district in the country, with the 5th largest in the state of Florida. We're the largest employer in Palm Beach County with nearly 23,000 employees. Our annual budget is approximately $4.1 billion. We have 197,000 students, and our graduation rate is just under 95%. And as you can see here, we have a diverse student body. Next slide, please. Our story starts in January of 2010 when the School District of Palm Beach County was awarded a 3-year grant for $360,000 from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Next slide. Well, our intention is to provide access to healthy foods and encourage physical activity to children and families living in what we refer to as the Lake Worth corridor, representing the cities of Lake Worth, Green Acres, and Palm Springs. Because of the educational component and the physical activity connection, the program was initially overseen by our teaching and learning department. The journey began with 4 elementary school gardens and 1 community garden. Because of the nutritional benefits of school gardens in 2013, when the grant ended, the School Food Service Department took over, and the initiative continues with us today. My role is to oversee the initiative and coordinate the collaborative efforts of all the departments in our district that support school gardens. Next slide, please. Today, of our 205 schools, 140 of them have a school garden initiative on their campus. Next slide, please. As you can imagine, overseeing an initiative like this, such a large district that we have, is a collaborative effort. To ensure that we maintain consistent practices, in 2016, we established a garden collaboration team. This is a cross-functional team with representatives from 12 different departments. And in 2017, we earned a Best Practices Award from the USDA for our garden collaboration team and our Garden of Dreams initiative, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. In addition to fielding questions posed by our schools, our garden collaboration team works together to create our school garden development guide. Our 4th edition was published in August of 2020. And if John, if you can click that link, that would be great. And
Yeah.
as you,
Let me get there. Here it is.
okay. I don't know if anybody can see it. I can't see it.
I'm getting there, hopefully.
Okay.
Can you see it there?
Yep. And if you would just hit one of those arrows to advance it a little bit, as you can see, this is a comprehensive guide which includes what the district will allow as it relates to school gardens. Schools interested in doing things or purchasing items that are outside the parameters of this guide are directed to email the garden collaboration team for approval before moving forward. To serve the ongoing educational needs that support our schools, school food service provides various learning opportunities which are generally defined, that are definitely defined and very, very well attended. We've held a 2-day conference, which was held during the summer during a tropical storm, and 150 teachers attended. We've held a garden curriculum workshop called Bringing the Classroom into the Garden, where we offered a 2-hour workshop featuring sessions on how to bring math, science, and language arts into the garden for elementary and secondary students. And that was held on a Saturday, and 100 teachers attended. We held a school garden summer workshop series in June of 2020, which was intended to be an in-person workshop series that was turned into a virtual series thanks to COVID. And that was also held in the summer for 4 consecutive Tuesdays from 8 a.m. to noon. And given the size of our district, we partner with our community partners, both locally and at the state level, to provide resources and to capitalize on the learning opportunities for our teachers and ultimately our students. And we created a school garden community coalition to connect them with, so that we can connect with them monthly to discuss and brainstorm upcoming opportunities. Next slide, please. Prior to COVID, we would engage directly with our students by holding special events like taste testings. These are photos from an event where we partnered with the American Heart Association and provided samples of a kale apple salad to our students at 8 different elementary schools during lunchtime, and the kids loved it. Next slide, please. This is an example of some planting days that we've held at one elementary school, and you'll notice that we have a board member and a principal present. Next slide, please. Here's an example of a Harvest Day celebration, and where, generally speaking, most of our schools do not yield enough produce to support a Harvest Day celebration. When we hold these kinds of days, the school food service department procures the produce for the event that supports what the school was actually growing in their garden at the time. Next slide, please. We also leverage health fairs to feature smoothie bars and herb stations to provide students with opportunities to try new things. We offered a spinach and banana and a cucumber mint smoothie, and the kids went nuts. We also like to show students the difference between how herbs look and smell when they're grown in a garden, and how they look and smell when they're purchased from a grocery store. And my last slide, please. Lastly, we have a special garden that we call the Garden of Dreams, which is available to middle schools. This is a serenity garden coupled with an empowerment program to support SEL, or social emotional learning practices of self-awareness and self-management, to bring the school food service influence into each of these gardens. We feature a very small herb garden incorporated into the landscape. And that's it. That's it for me.
Wow, thank you so much. You gotta go that. You did it the fastest. You probably have to do that when you have 200 schools and 200,000 students. But what I love about this model is the way they have, if you want to ask a school garden question, you send an email to their district and it goes to any potential collaborator, stakeholder in school garden. So it goes to Janine, it goes to health and safety, it goes to facilities, it goes to all different people. And I think that was just a brilliant idea in a district as big as yours. So thanks for sharing. And there are links to the slides in your handout. And Janine, a question about your guide, your school garden guide. Is that available on your website so folks could?
We don't have it available. Well, actually, yes, it would be available. It's in a very weird spot. I can send out the link. I'll get the link and I'll put it into the chat box so that you can get there, because you're going to have to go through a very weird space to get it, because it's on for school gardens. It's an intranet, but it is forward facing. So I'll get it for you. Great. While we're on the call.
Well, thank you very much. And I've been trying to get a hold of Akita and I have not been able to. Tristana, have you made any headway on that?
I have not, no.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward with Dominique Machi, who is the food service director at Mount Diablo Unified, which is east of San Francisco, and it's a rather large school district. And I'm gonna let Dominique take it away and share a bit about the work that they do.
Well, hello to everybody, and wow, those were really some fantastic presentations. Excellent. So As John had said, my name is Dominic Maki, Director of Food and Nutrition Services and Warehouse at Mount Diablo Unified School District. And let me kind of give a quick description on our district and some of the work that we've done. So next slide, please. So our district enrollment is about 29,000 students. Our district sits in about 150 square miles with 53 school sites. We serve about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 communities in the East Bay of the Bay Area. We have 47 cooking kitchens. So we actually do, my background is a culinary background as an executive chef. So we do a lot of scratch made food in our school sites. So that's something that we have been developing for the last 3 to 4 years. Right now we're doing about 20,000 meals per day that we serve when we participate in school breakfasts, national school lunch, after school snacks, supper program on the summer seamless option. We support the school gardens as part of nutrition education for one part is for our district's local wellness program. So next slide, please. So one of the biggest things that we found is in the last 3 years is the collaboration. And here in the Bay Area, out of Berkeley, California, we got a restaurateur that's pretty well known. Her name is Chef Alice Waters from Berkeley at Chez Panisse. And she always believed that the school gardens could be used in curriculum. And so I have a picture here to the left is Jennifer Zaks, who is our Chief of Educational Services, and myself. One of the things that we've done here in Mount Diablo Unified is we have now, with the support and partnership of Life Lab out of Santa Cruz, where John is at, that we have actually our school gardens being used in instructional curriculum for the next generation science standards here in California, which is really a huge, big step forward for us. We also have many school gardens that are part of our after school cares program, where we do educational enrichment activities, culinary taste testing, culinary cooking with students and things of that nature. But really to have it as part of in our instructional minutes is really been a huge step forward. On the right, you see there myself with a volunteer and a couple of our students. We just are actually right now in the middle of renovating a school garden. It's about a 2-acre property with a culinary center in it, as well as an outdoor classroom. And then there's also particular areas throughout the garden that have nutrition education. So anyway, so with that said, we're partnering with food services, educational services, and our school garden coordinators. We have two of our coordinators, Tamara and Lainey, who are coordinating about close to 17 of our sites that are using the next generation science standards and using that curriculum through the school gardens, as well as we have many programs in the after school program that is also learning educational enrichment as well. One of the big things for us is not only is this nutrition education, but to have this in curriculum, and now we're moving forward with a culinary program. We're going to be starting soon in our elementary schools, culinary programs that will be connected to the garden. We also have in our high schools, one of our high schools has, it's the International Hospitality and Tourism Academy, which is a culinary program where our students will move on to either the Culinary Institute of America or Johnson & Wales or University of Nevada, Las Vegas. We're actually, they're taking that culinary program, and the school garden at the high school, which is about a half-acre property, is a part of that program. And we're actually doing farm to table that the students are learning in the high school level. We also have tower gardens that the students are learning. So really, myself coming from this type of background, the school gardens and food is so science related. And it's not only science, but it has math, it has history, it has, there's agricultural economics involved. There's so many things that school gardens can promote. Besides that, it's an outdoor space, an outdoor classroom. And for some students that don't really enjoy learning as much in the traditional manner of inside the classroom, this gives them a opportunity, and as had been said before by one of our presenters, that social emotional learning model where there's sensory skills, there's taste, there's so many things, textures, and so many other things they learn that they wouldn't learn really in the traditional classrooms. So that's what makes these school gardens and outdoor classrooms are so important, and is one of these projects that we have here that you see on the right, this is a 2-acre property that's going to probably take us about 2 years to put in place because, of course, in an outdoor garden center, as I'm calling it, there's a lot of pathways that have to be ADA compliant. There's many things that we still have to put in place. Of course, there's those food safety issues when you're doing culinary programs outside in the garden, but also then how can we go ahead and utilize some of the produce that goes into the middle school that's next door. And actually, we're using a lot of the produce that comes from our school gardens gets donated. That was before COVID into our salad bars. Hopefully, we'll be back to salad bars soon because that's really is the game changer. That's what we've seen, that there's so much engagement with the students because they see the fresh fruit, they see the fresh vegetables, and if they actually grew it, as it's been said before in some of the presentations, the engagement of the students and the experience they feel is something that gives them a positive experience. And when they get a positive experience, it's only related back into the classroom when they finish out the rest of the school day after the lunch period. So we are feel very strongly about this. They're going to continue. And one is the tie into the culinary program. I think that's something that we're going to experience and see that with the school gardens and the culinary program as myself, as an executive chef and taking classes at the Culinary Institute of America up in Napa Valley in St. Helena. That's the first thing we do as chefs. We go out and we experience what's in the garden. And then from there, we make this mystery basket. And it was proven on this particular day, you see, I took eggplant in the garden. I just roasted it, basically marinated it, and did the same thing with butternut squash, roasted in the oven with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I changed people's taste buds, which I didn't even think I was going to do, but I did. That said, I really don't like eggplant, but man, that was really good. I really like eggplant now. Or, butternut squash. Well, I never had butternut squash like that. So that's where really the culinary program in the garden and the science piece, we can really come together and really create this synergy where it just changes the eating patterns and better health and student wellness for students. So, John, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Dominique. And I just love the stories of the partnerships in culinary and science and having a high-level district administrator. It's if you put it all on one person, you need a team is really the way to do it. So it was really great to hear about those different partnerships. So Akita came back on. So thank you, Dominique. Akita came back on. So I'm going to spotlight her and get her slides back. So Akita, thanks for making it back on. I know Zoom could be challenging sometimes as it was. So I'm going to get to your slides. Thanks for making it back.
It's where I'm located. I'm about 30 miles from my school in this little town called Sparta, and the Wi-Fi is horrible around here. So I apologize for that. Okay. So again, my name is Akita Mayweather, and I serve as the wellness coordinator and the project manager for our gardens. We call our project the Baldwin Grows Garden Project. We're located in Middle Georgia, and I think we talked about our 5,000 students and the 7 schools that we serve, including one satellite site at the local college that's in Milledgeville. What I want you to know is that before I started on this journey 3 years ago, we already had an award-winning wellness program. That's a picture of my director, Ms. Susan Nelson. She's always been one to think outside of the box. And so she was already doing wellness work. We had a wellness policy that encapsulated the farm to school program. We had standards and ways in which we were implementing nutrition and physical activity standards prior to me coming. But she was already winning awards. Like in 2017, she won the Golden Radish Award. And I put the different measures that we have for Golden Radish because those will become significant later on in my presentation. And so she was doing the wellness policy. She was integrating curriculum with teachers. She had little small herb gardens growing at all of the cafeterias, hands-on cooking for the students. And that's how many times per year she was doing that. But it was beginning to get overwhelming to her. And so she said, well, I need to use one of my positions. I'm not going to hire a staff person in the cafeteria. I want to hire a wellness coordinator, someone who would just coordinate our wellness efforts. And so I interviewed for the position and I obtained the position. And as a result, I became their part-time wellness coordinator. Next slide. And so I got that position in 2018. And also in that very year, we were gifted a 1.5 acre of land that was right next to the high school ag department. The high school did not have a garden. They had a greenhouse and they were growing flowers, but they were not growing vegetables. And so our chairperson of the Board of Ed said that we're going to spend $16,000. We're going to get all these pine trees excavated and you guys can start a garden over there. And here it is, Akita, go to it. And so in 2019, they realized I couldn't do this work part-time and they made me a part-time project manager for the Garden Grows project. So I serve in dual capacities for both. And so the awards continued. We continued to get the Golden Radish Platinum Award. We won Baby Golden Radish Awards. We did the Community Innovation Awards. In 2020, we took a break because of COVID. 2021, we won the Hungry Hero Award. We've gotten Golden Radish mini grants and all kinds of things. And we've been able to obtain over $300,000 in grants to support our program. One is through the Farm to School program, and the other is through the Food and Agricultural Service Learning Project that we partnered with Fort Valley State College to write. We developed partnerships, over 100 community members that were from businesses, universities, ag organizations, other nonprofits to support the gardens. We had members of our community action team who volunteer their time to serve on our community action team for our farm to school work. We developed partnerships with local farmers and also culinary chefs for hands-on education. And we partnered with the Botanical State Gardens and the Rotary Clubs to create 7 pollinator gardens at each of our schools. Next slide. Like I said, we developed these partnerships. We've recruited over 20 members for that community action team. We've also obtained over 100 sponsors ranging from $100 to $15,000 to obtain over $70,000 in sponsorships and in-kind services for our farm to school work. And so in order for us to get started with me being a full-time person, that's how we got started, by getting grants that supported salaries for me to be able to engage in this work. And so we have done truly some amazing things because what I've learned with gardens, if you're going to do anything with gardens at schools, you have to have someone who is going to be, quote unquote, the manager of the project, or else it kind of dies. When you leave it in the hands of the teachers or the administrators at the schools, a lot of times they don't have the time or the capacity to be able to go out and pound the pavement to talk to people about supporting your efforts. And so that's where our cafeteria manager, director, when she thought out of the box and said, I need to find someone to do this position because I can't do it effectively or to the best of my ability. So that's when she had to bring someone else in. And so we've developed some amazing, amazing partnerships, and it's been able to help us to sustain our ability to do the work. Next slide. I just wanted to show you where we were in 2018 in terms of garden beds. We had 2 schools that had gardens then. We only had 19 raised beds at those 2 schools. We had no row gardens at all. We did have 2 greenhouses, as opposed to where we are now. We currently have 91 raised beds, and all 7 of our schools have gardens. We have 2 row gardens, and you can see at the middle and the high school, they're quite significant. The high school has 100-foot rows. They actually gave us this 1.5 acre of land in which we teach our kids row gardening. And so you'll see them on the tractors. You'll see them creating the rows and planting. All of the harvesting is done. And we have 2 greenhouses still, with 1 to come that will be supporting our aquaponics growing system. Next slide. The other thing that the grants allowed us to do was to start developing a farm to school team. And so back in 2019, we were able to acquire 1 Food Corps service member. And these are excellent AmeriCorps volunteers that come into our schools. They work directly with our teachers. They teach standard-based lessons to the students. They go out and they do the gardening at each of our schools. And so when we started in 2019, we only had one individual, Miss Molly, who's on the left. And then in 2020, we got 2, Jenna and Nicole. And now in 2021, we have Nicole, we have Alfreda, and we have Miss Ann. And so we have Food Corps service members at all of our schools. And so Jenna, Nicole serves in our Lakeview cluster. So she has 2 schools, Alfreda has 2 schools, and Miss Ann is now serving our high school and our middle school, which they did not have that option when we first began. And so we're a part of the pilot program for Food Corps for that new nutrition service member. And so many of the things that I used to have to do on my own, like taste testing in all of the schools and going around and seeing how the gardens were being managed, now I have a team. That's the other thing that you want to look at if you want to start gardens in your schools, especially multiple schools, making sure that you're able to establish a team. And so I help my Food Corps members to learn how to do grant writing. We've leveraged over $12,000 just from grants that they've written. We've conducted over 50 taste tests, over 100 food-related lessons. That was just last year. We've developed 7 Harvest of the Month curriculums. And we've also developed this video called Try Things that we sent out in a newsletter to the parents. And basically our Harvest of the Month, whatever that vegetable or fruit is being featured, then our Food Corps members actually do a cute little video with a recipe where they're in the kitchen and they're teaching the kids how to actually prepare that recipe.
Akita, we are going to have to just end with one more slide because we're coming to the end of our time. So I don't know if it's this slide or...
That's fine. And so I just want to also share that we also depend heavily on our colleges, Fort Valley State University, as well as Georgia College. That's where we get our interns from. And they help us help the ag teachers at the at the middle school and the high school level. They do taste testing for me. They teach Harvest of the Month lessons. We teach them how to do grant writing and fundraising as well. Everything in the garden that we have on that 1.5 acres was donated, and a lot of it was because of the efforts of our interns. And then we have the portion of the program with the students where they are actually doing the planting, the harvesting, selling back to our cafeteria. Like we just had this big harvest of collard greens and turnips that our cafeteria managers were able to buy from our ag program, and they're going to serve them during the Thanksgiving dinner that's coming up in November. And so those have been frozen, and all of that is because of the efforts of our school. And we have so many things that are going on, but I would be happy to talk offline with anyone just to share how we actually did it. But the key for us was partnerships, having a community that embraced what we were trying to do, gave their resources, their times, their talents to support us, and also having an administration, our superintendent, as well as our school nutrition director, who believes in farm to school, who believes in school gardens, who believes in what they can do for students. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Akita. And I just want to reiterate what you shared about partnerships is so true. Like, it takes a village to make this happen. So we are at the end of our time. We went a little over. I was over ambitious with all that we wanted to share, but I think we did share a lot. We will continue this discussion on our forum, and we will invite you via the follow-up email and address some of the questions that you put in the chat where we have some answers, like Dominique is going to share some recipes. We will be able to continue this discussion on our forum, and we'll invite you to do so, to be a part of the discussion. And just a reminder here with the resources on your screen, we have our handout, which is at bit.ly school food school gardens. And then we also have our post survey, which is at bit.ly SGSO-feedback. I want to really appreciate you all for taking the time out of your day, sticking through this long presentation. There was so much to share. I want to thank our presenters so much for sharing, putting together their slides and sharing nuggets of wisdom and experience. It's great to see everyone continuing these paths from new programs to 20-year programs. Be well, folks, and we'll see you online at the summit or at a future webinar. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.